Welcome to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we are continuing with our discussions of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Specifically, today we're discussing chapter 67, concerning Baladeva killing the demon Dvivida, who embodies nihilism. So before we begin our class, I will chant some prayers of invocation. Sri Sutta Uvacha Yaprabhajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dvapayano Viraha Katara Ujhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedas Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Muninam Manantosmi. Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances to the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son!' Indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father." That's Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 2. Now we chant Verse 3. Yasvadubhavam akila sruti saramekam adhyatmadipam atitasaram tamundam samsarinam karunayaha purana guhyam tam vyasasunum upayami gurum muninam. Let me offer my obeisances to him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest region of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by personal experience. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 4. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. We'll chant one more of these verses. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 17. Shridvatam svakata Krishna punyashravana kirtana hridyantasto hyabadrani vidunoti suhrit satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So let's see who's joined us today. Check in with you. We have Kirtida joining us from Norway. Kirtida sends gratitude. And we have Viven, who says, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here. We have a smaller group to begin with today, it seems. So, there we are, a few more. So those of you who are online, feel free to say hello. Just drop a little message in the chat so we can acknowledge your presence here as we relish this nectar nectarian description of Krishna's activities. Monica Sharma joining us from Sydney, Australia, says Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for being here, Monica. There is a famous story about Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra. You may have heard it before. It involves a situation where in the early days, devotees, disciples of Prabhupada would hear him chant a pranam mantra for his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but they had no pranam mantra to glorify Srila Prabhupada. So they approached Srila Prabhupada and asked him if they could have a pranam mantra to glorify him. Prabhupada agreed, but the situation was such that in those days, none of his disciples knew Sanskrit to compose a mantra. And so at the devotee's request, Srila Prabhupada composed his own pranam mantra. Now you could reflect on this for a second and consider, if you had to compose Prabhupada's pranam mantra, what would you say? What would you write? How would you succinctly encompass Prabhupada's achievements and personality and activities in a short mantra? Well, Prabhupada, he wrote, Namaste Saraswati Deve. Obeisances to you, O servant of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, identifying himself in his connection with his spiritual master in Guru Parampara. There's a famous story that in Prabhupada's visa application for the US, when they wrote, where they have the space for occupation, he writes, servant of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Next, Prabhupada wrote, Gauravani Pracharine, O you who preach the message of Sri Chaitanya. And that's what he dedicated himself to doing. Then we know the mantra, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastatjane Shatarine. You have brought those teachings to the Western countries to defeat impersonalism, Nirvishesh, and voidism or nihilism, Sunyavad. So we talk a lot about impersonalism in our classes. Mayavad philosophy is impersonalism. It says that all that exists, the world, our bodies, our experience of the world is an illusion, and the only reality is Brahman, God, and you are that God. That's the conclusion of this philosophy. What about Sunyavad? Sunyavad is the theory of voidism or nihilism, which says that there is no purpose or meaning to anything. There's no God, there's no karma, there's no virtue or ethic. So it's interesting how Prabhupada defines himself as Chaitanya's messenger. Prabhupada's Sri Chaitanya's representative in opposition to these ideas, Mayavad or impersonalism, and Sunyavad, which is voidism or nihilism. Prabhupada, as the spiritual master, is a representative of Baladeva, the Adi Guru. Since chapter 65, we have been discussing Balaram's glories. 65, we had Lord Balaram's visit to Vrindavan and his pacifying the residents of Vrindavan, feeling deep separation from Krishna. This chapter that we'll discuss today, 67, continues to describe Balaram's pastimes, particularly how he defeated the ape demon Dvivida, who represents nihilism or voidism. So once again, we're discussing Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10, Chapter 67. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll discuss this chapter under three headings. 1, the influence of pride and bad association, verses 1 through to 7. 2, Dvivida angers Balaram, verses 8 to 15. And finally, the defeat of Dvivida's nihilism, verses 16 to 28. So we begin with this topic, the influence of pride and bad association. Narakasura is a demon that we've already met. Krishna defeated him in chapter 59. He had a friend named Dvivida. This Dvivida was an ape or a gorilla. He had been an associate of King Sugriva in the service of Sri Ramachandra. In fact, Dvivida, the original, is one of Ramachandra's eternal associates. This ape was an Amsa of that Dvivida. He wanted to avenge the death of Narakasura. After Krishna killed that demon Narakasura at Dvivida, he wanted retribution. And he caused all kinds of mischief to show his displeasure or anger. He devastated the province where Krishna resided, Anarta, that's the region where Dvarka is situated. He set fires to the homes of cowherds in the villages. He set fires that burned cities and mines. He would tear up mountain peaks. He's very strong, very powerful. Just like just like Hanuman, he's carrying mountain peaks to build a bridge to Lanka. And so this Dvivida, he's very strong. He would tear up mountain peaks and he would cause avalanches that devastated neighboring cities and towns and kingdoms. He would go to the ocean and with his powerful arms, he would cause tidal waves that devastated communities along the oceans. He went to the ashrams of sages and tore down the trees. And when the sages were performing fire sacrifice, he would pass stool and urine to disrupt the sacrifice, to contaminate the sacrificial altar. He would also kidnap people and imprison them in mountain caves and then seal those caves with boulders. So we can see from all of this that he was a real troublemaker. We can pause here and reflect. The first point we can take from this, the first life lesson we can take from this is to be very careful of pride. The tale of Dvivida, the once devoted associate of Ramachandra, turned corrupt by bad association, imparts to us the important life lesson on the importance or the critical importance of choosing good association. Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in their commentaries, they both confirm that previously Dvivida had been an associate of Ram, but the seed of his downfall was an offense to Lakshman. He disrespected Lakshman due to his pride in his strength. He was very powerful, and therefore he thought himself better than Lakshman. And so because of this, he made offense, and this led to his further downfall, which is our second lesson. Choose your association wisely. Dvivida's act of arrogance led him into the company of the demon Narakasura. Narakasura himself is an interesting tale because, as we learned when we discussed that chapter, he was the son of Bhumi Devi and Varahadev, so most exalted parentage. But he had also been corrupted and became a demon. He had kidnapped 16,100 princesses from across the earth or across the universe and kept them in his palace and caused all kinds of other mischief as well. So Dvivida chose him as his friend, and he also became corrupted by that association. So the association that we keep significantly influences our character, and our character influences our destiny. And so we need to be very careful what association we are choosing to keep. There's an inverse to this lesson. if we should avoid bad association, the inverse to this is that we should choose good association. By choosing good association, we can be uplifted. And so, therefore, we emphasize sarusanga, sarva shastrakai, lavamatra sarusanga, sarva siddhi hoy. Seek out the association of devotees. A moment's association with the sadhu, with the advanced devotee, can bring about all perfection. Sarva siddhi high. So these negative examples can also be, or should also be, discussed in the positive as well, the positive instruction. So Dvivida, he caused offense to Balaram as well. And that's our next topic. Dvivida angers Balaram, verses 8 through to 15. Once, as Dvivida was causing disturbance across the land, polluting, Sukadeva Goswami says, polluting young women of respectable families, he came upon Raivataka mountain. He heard music and singing, and he followed that sound in order to cause mischief. And arriving at the place that was the source of that sound, he found Baladeva enjoying in the company of a group of attractive women. Ignoring Balaram, he displayed his lower regions to the women right in front of Balaram. He made crude gestures. He made funny faces with his eyebrows. He passed stool and urine. And Dvivida, with this outrageous behavior, angered Lord Baladeva. Baladeva wanted to shoo him away, and so threw a stone at him, which Dvivida dodged. And then he ridiculed Balaram by tugging at these women's clothing. So we can pause here again for life lessons. We see here in Balaram a lack of moral restraint. And this lack of moral restraint, terrorizing people, sealing them in mountain caves, disrupting villages and towns, it leads to his disrespect of Balaram, and it indicates a total disregard for any moral or spiritual values. His crude gestures, his insults, they dehumanize the women that were in the company of Balaram, and they reflect a nihilistic perspective that denies the inherent value or meaning of life, of God, of morality, of the soul. And so the story serves as a reminder for us that in the absence of any spiritual grounding, that we may take up behaviors that are disrespectful, that lack any empathy or basic respect for other people, that is individuals or wider society or nature as well. So this leads us now to our third topic, and that is the defeat of Dvivida's nihilism, verses 16 to 28. Balaram, seeing the audacity of this demon Dvivida, decided that it was time to punish him. So he took up his gada, his club, and his hala, his plow. One of Balaram's names is Haladara, the carrier of the plow. And Dvivida similarly took up his weapon. In this instance, it was a sal tree. The sal tree is famous for being very sturdy, very strong wood, good for making boats and houses. So he took up a sal tree and he used that sal tree as a club and struck Balaram on the head. Balaram, he's very powerful and strong. He remained unmoved on being struck on the head. Rather, that tree trunk, that sturdy, strong sal tree, was smashed to pieces on striking Balaram's head. And so Dvivida, he uprooted another tree, and yet another, and another, until the entire forest had disappeared. And although he had struck Balaram on the head and on his powerful body with one tree after another, Lord Balaram simply broke all those trees to pieces. And so with no trees left, Dvivida he took to throwing large stones. And Balaram, he crushed all those stones to powder. After that, Dvivida attacked Lord Balaram with his powerful fists. And so how did Balaram respond to this attack of Dvivida's fists? It's very interesting. He put down his club, he put down his plow, and he also stood ready to strike Balaram with his own hands as well. And indeed, that's what he did. He struck Dvivida's throat and his shoulder, and this caused Dvivida to vomit blood and fall down dead. Having killed Dvivida, the troublemaker, the demigod showered Balaram with flowers. The sages, they glorified him and offered humble obeisances, and Balaram, he set off to Dvaraka. So we can pause here and reflect on important lessons. There is an important lesson in Balaram's not tolerating Dvivida's disrespectful behavior towards the women that were in his association, not tolerating his crude gestures, his indecent behavior. And this serves as a stark reminder for us of the importance of the dharma principle of respect for all living beings, or non-violence, ahimsa, towards all living beings. This incident then underscores the need for treating all other living beings with decency and avoiding actions that demean or insult others. There's another really instructive point for us in Balaram's putting aside his weapons. Why did he do that? It actually indicates to us that Balaram's fighting or punishing Dvivida is not driven at all by ego, or not driven by anger, but rather by righteousness. This is a dharma principle that Kshatriyas fight on equal terms. And so in adhering to this principle, Balaram encourages us to recognize that true strength lies not in external tools or physical strength, but rather in our character and our resilience, which comes from dharma. Balaram, if he was driven by ego or anger, he would have used his weapons to kill Dvivida, but he wants to show dharma even in fighting with a character like Dvivida, because his purpose in punishing Dvivida is itself to protect dharma or to protect virtue. Krishna is the supreme dharma. Param dharma, pavitram paramam bhavam. Arjuna glorifies Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. You are the supreme destination. You are the supreme virtue or the supreme religion. And so Balaram's punishing Dvivida's actions signifies the importance of also standing up in support of dharma and against injustice or indecency. This is a warning to us against the dangers of nihilism, which sees no meaning or purpose or need to uphold dharma or to respect God or respect other living beings, and rather encourages us towards the cultivation of dharma, virtue, as aspiring devotees of Krishna, recognizing Krishna as the supreme dharma. So let us conclude with a prayer that summarizes these ideas, these lessons from this story. Beloved Krishna, protect us, O Lord, from the swelling tide of arrogance. For in the tale of Dvivida, we discern the unraveling threads of devotion entangled in the web of offenses against your dear devotees, leading to bad association. Let our hearts be vigilant against the siren call of pride as we tread the path of devotion. Guide us, O Krishna, to choose our association wisely, for in the company of the demon Naraka, Dvivida's soul succumbed to moral decay. May our associations be the gentle breeze that uplifts our spirits, not the storm that drowns us in the sea of despair. Let us indeed recognize the transformative power of good association, as Dvivida's downfall unveils the consequences of disrespect and pride. Let us embrace the uplifting association of virtuous souls. In the unfolding of Dvivida's nihilistic escapades, we tremble at the dehumanizing notes that deny the inherent value of life and spirit. O Krishna, shield us from the dissolution of a heart detached from morality, empathy, and the sacred. In the defeat of Dvivida's nihilism, Balaram's might teaches us life's sacred lessons. Let us hold fast to the dharma principle of ahimsa, recognizing the dignity of every soul, and tread the path where respect blooms like the lotus in the vast pond of existence. O Krishna, in the protection of virtue, let Balaram's retribution echo the call to stand against injustice and indecency. In the face of nihilism's venom, let us cultivate the fertile soil of dharma, aspiring devotees rooted in the supreme virtue that is your eternal essence. So thank you all for being here. Let me acknowledge some of you who joined as we started speaking. We have with us Janavamata, who says, Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, all glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you for being with us, as always, Janavamata, joining us from Dunedin in the South Island of New Zealand. Sudevi is with us from Sydney, Australia. Thank you for being with us, Sudevi. And again, we cannot thank you enough. And Sevapuri, sorry, I said Sudevi, Devi, forgive me. Devi with us from Sydney, and we cannot thank you enough, Devi and Sevapuri, for kindly posting the prayers that we offer at the end of each talk to summarize each talk, and for not only posting, but Devi is also illustrating those prayers. So thank you very, very much. Janavamata has a comment. Thank you for sharing the Pranam Nectar. Did Srila Prabhupada compose both of his Pranam mantras? And the answer is yes. The first Pranam mantra is pretty much generic. It's the same as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Pranam mantra, just the name changed at the end. And that's the same Pranam mantra that many ISKCON gurus have. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate. Insert the name Iti Namine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who is Krishna Preshta, who is near to Krishna. And that's the important principle there. We approach Krishna through those who are dear to him, through the devotees. So Prabhupada, yes, he composed it in the sense that he gave us that mantra with his name at the end. And then the second mantra is the more personal mantra, where we see he has illustrated who he's given us to glorify him in relation to his spiritual master, his preaching Lord Chaitanya's message, and in doing so, standing against or to defeat voidism and impersonalism. Priya Krishna says, happy to join Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you for being here, Priya Krishna Prabhuji. Grateful to have your presence. And if you could let me know where you're joining from, that would be nice as well. We get to know you a little. Janavamanta says, it seems often our worst association is our own corrupt mind and false ego. That's a good observation. Krishna, he indicates that to be the case in the Bhagavad Gita when he says the mind can be your worst enemy or your best friend. When the mind is not directed, but rather is in control of us, leading us, misleading us, then it can act as our worst enemy and lead us astray. When the mind is disciplined and given direction and focus, it is so powerful. It can be our powerful ally, and Krishna says our best friend. So learning to discipline the mind, it is a great yogic skill. And it is something that is challenging, but Krishna tells us it is possible by knowledge and by practice, leading to detachment. Janavamata further says, and good association also comes by studying Srila Prabhupada's books and lectures. Absolutely. So we can associate in different ways with the devotee. Vapu and Vani. Vapu means physical form, Vani means teaching. And so we are very fortunate that these days we have technologies that now allow us to capture the Vani as recorded sound, recorded images, both static images and moving images, in addition to the written word. So lots of opportunity for us to have the association of devotees via the means of Vani. Vapu is maybe less available to us, but Vani can travel far and wide. And so we're all advised to seek the association of devotees through their Vani form, association through their messages, through their teaching. Lectures recorded in presence, but also recorded digitally at a distance using technologies and the written word as well. So we can also have the association of the Goswamis of Vrindavan, the disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all of the teachers in our line who have been most prolific in their writing. Prabhupada spent so much of his time writing his Bhaktivedanta purports as well. Shama Bihari is with us, sending gratitude, flower offerings. Thank you for being here, Shama Bihari. Grateful for your association. Janava Mata has another comment. Thank you as always for sharing the nectar of these wonderful pastimes. One of the symptoms of Kali Yuga is excessive pride. Srila Prabhupada would say, even the pauper is proud of his penny. Pride is very insidious, often difficult to recognize in ourselves. It clouds our vision and creates offenses. How can we become free from pride and develop true humility? Does the Lord help us from within and without? And the answer thank you for raising those questions. So grateful to you for reflecting on what we're discussing and posing questions like this for all of our benefit. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasizes the importance of overcoming pride in the third verse of his Shikshastakam. Tranadapi sunichena tarodapi sahishnuna amanena mananena kirtaniya sadahari. It's only when we have humility can we chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And so this question of how to develop humility is most pertinent, most important for all of us. It stands as a threshold to our being able to chant the holy name and thereby, with humility, and thereby receive the grace or the blessings of the holy name. So how to cultivate this? Practice is key here. Practice and hearing. Hearing can help us understand things as they are. So hearing of our conditioned nature, hearing of our eternal nature as a spirit soul that is identified with the material body, that is identified with the mind and the senses, the false ego, and the need to overcome that identification and realize our true spiritual nature, our true spiritual identity. So when we hear these things, it can awaken within us through contemplation a humility. But the hearing needs to lead to practice. So Shravana leads to contemplation and then realization. We hear, we contemplate and apply, and then we get realization. When we hear that we are eternal soul of Krishna, that we're not these bodies, minds, and senses, how we are caught up in the cycle of samsara, and the need to perform devotional service. When we engage in devotional service, in the association of devotees, and we cultivate an attitude of service and surrender, applying those teachings, then we get realization. That humility awakens in our heart. So hearing without application in service or the cultivation of an attitude of service can in fact even increase our pride. But when we apply it in service and we start to reorient ourselves from Purusha Abhiman, wanting to be the enjoyer or thinking of ourselves as the enjoyer, that should dominate and control material nature, should dominate and control others, to the identification, Jiva Sarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas, I am Krishna's servant. That will awaken within us a spirit of humility. So yeah, it's a critical question, Jadavamata, and it's also what's sometimes described as a how-to question, how to be humble. And the simple answer for a how-to question in devotional, in bhakti, is engage in the practice of devotional service. So these practices of hearing, chanting, remembering, glorifying, taking shelter of Krishna's name, his deity, his devotees, his dham, and so on, they can awaken within us with a sense of humility. Thank you for the question. Jadavamata says, what a beautiful and insightful and inspiring prayer. Thank you so much. Thank you for your encouragement. Kirtida with us from Norway says, thank you, beautiful class. Thank you, Kirtida. Grateful for your presence and encouragement. Gopal Govindashyam Das says, Hare Krishna Sri Prahlada Prabhu, such a sweet class. Yeah, well, thank you for that appreciation. And what I'll say is that we're discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the abode of sweetness. And so thank you for that appreciation of the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. Each and every one of us more and more can develop that appreciation that the real sweetness is in this Grantaraj, transcendental teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam. And when we do so, we'll achieve, we will detach from the material nature. So I'm switching to a different mode here because some of the earlier, my other platform, and when I change something, the comments disappeared, but now I can see them on Facebook, so we're good. All right, so yeah, there we are. Amiyatma Prabhuji joining us from Christchurch, New Zealand, says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, just joined from Vrindavan, catching your wonderful prayer. It's 2 a.m. here. Wow. Amiyatma Prabhu, we feel so blessed, first by your presence, second by your presence in Vrindavan, and this connection that we have right now from Sri Vrindavan Dham. We're feeling Krishna's blessings. You're Krishna's representative to all of us in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And you're connecting at 2 a.m. It's also most incredible. So thank you for all of that. Let's see. Just changing the display here because I lost my questions or comments, but all right. Yeah, Janamamata says, Prabhu, your classes are nourishing, are nourishment and nurturing to my soul. I'm eternally grateful. Thank you, Janamamata. I can say that your presence is always so inspiring and encouraging, and your questions and comments as well. Bring out the nectar that we are trying to explore and share in these classes. So we're most grateful to you. Yasodha Prabhuji, joining us from Christchurch, New Zealand, says, Jai Ho, Kaviraj, Sri Prahlada Prabhu. Yasoda, we are greatly inspired by your presence here and your encouragement, and great to see you still have your sense of humor, calling me Kaviraj. You always did have a good sense of humor, and it's one of the things that we love about you. Of course, we love your art, we love your enthusiasm for devotional service, and we're just grateful. Seeing your name makes us happy, so thank you. Rasa Stali sends a flower offering, so thank you for being here, Rasa Stali. And a comment, my humble pranams, Prabhu, and all the devotees. So joining us from South Africa. We're always grateful for your presence, Rasa Stali, recognizing that it is very late and you make extra effort to be present for these classes, so much appreciated. And then there's a comment from Janava Mata who says, thank you for such a complete and satisfying answer. That was about humility. What about devotees that did so much service, but also became proud of that service? Some even leave or get kicked out. What's the solution? So yeah, thank you for raising this point. For all of us, we will experience in our devotional lives as we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see that kings and sages who practice devotional service have experiences in their spiritual lives where Krishna provides opportunity for us to develop humility. So if we're not introspective ourselves and recognizing this anartha, and we're not getting the realization through our own hearing and practice, realization of our position as servant of Krishna, and having an attitude of service for all beings, even for the world itself, which is Krishna's energy. So all things and beings, approaching them in an attitude of service and humility. If this is not awakening within us through our practice and introspection, then Krishna, in his mercy, creates the opportunity for us to become humble by creating some kind of jolt. So therefore, these experiences in the Bhagavatam, where we see devotees encounter some challenge or difficulty, we see it as Krishna's mercy. And when we experience this in our own lives, or in the lives, when we see it in the lives of our god brothers or god sisters or god uncles or other family, god family, we should see also that they're receiving Krishna's mercy in one or another. We're not able to understand the course of a person's spiritual development over one or two or many lifetimes. We're not able to properly understand where a person stands. Maybe there was someone very exalted in a previous life. Maybe in this life, they're going through working something out, like Jana Bharat. He was at the level of bhava. And then Krishna arranged for him to become a deer and then to become Brahmana who played deaf and dumb. So no soul, but he was working something out under Krishna's arrangement and under Krishna's care, taken back to the spiritual world. So we must be very, very careful in judging any devotee. We must approach all devotees in a spirit of humility. And when we see devotees experience difficulty, when we see that pride, um, we see them experience difficulty, we should be very cautious in casting any judgment. Better to give devotees the benefit of the doubt. And I think in general, that is a good way to deal with others in the world, but particularly with devotees. So what is the solution? If we don't approach this ourselves, if we don't ourselves seek to cultivate humility, then Krishna will arrange that it is awakened within us one way or another. It is necessary to cross the threshold and enter into Sudhana. Our initial stages of chanting are Nama Parad, so we chant with offense. As we become more spiritually realized, then it comes to the stage of Namas. It's a shadow of the name. To cross into the threshold, to cross the threshold and enter into Sudhana, we must be at a position of humility, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us. And we can cultivate this through introspection and disciplined spiritual practice. And once we are sincere, and maybe that humility is not arising within us, then Krishna will arrange it, because Krishna doesn't appreciate pride in the hearts of his devotees. Final comment here from Janavamata, who says, I'm inspired by Lord Balaram's wonderful example when instructing others how we can get the message across without disturbing the false ego mind, heart of others. How can, okay, so question. How, when instructing others, how can we get the message across without disturbing the false ego mind, heart of others? It's a good question, and that would be the expertise of the preacher. So the more expert preacher, the better they're able to preach or share the pure teachings of Krishna consciousness without disturbing the false ego of the other. Prabhupada had that skill. He could speak so boldly, and people would appreciate what he said. They tended not to be offended. When we parrot Prabhupada's words without his humility and maturity, if we just parrot his words directly, we may offend others. And so it takes some maturity to convey the pure teachings of Krishna consciousness according to meeting a person at their level of spiritual realization, evolution, discipline, understanding. The expert example is Narada Muni. We see he's a great preacher in the Bhagavatam. He was the spiritual master, the author of the Bhagavatam. And he's also the spiritual master of many others in the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Prachina Barhi, and so many others. And we see that he adapts and adjusts his approach depending on the level of spiritual maturity and evolution of the person that he's instructing or teaching. And so sometimes he tells his previous story, as he did with Vyas, his own life story, or he will speak strong words, just as he did with Vyas. At other times, he speaks indirectly through metaphor, as he did with King Prachinabarhi. Sometimes he'll instruct one person by instructing someone else, as he did with Prahlad Maharaj. He taught Prahlad Maharaj by instructing his mother. Sometimes he will instruct a person to do one thing as a test, just to see their level of maturity before giving them spiritual guidance, as he did with Dhruva Maharaj. He tested him, initially telling him to young man, he should go home and take up spiritual life later when he's older. Dhruva Maharaj showed his determination, and then Muni initiated him in the Srimad, in the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we see that Narada Muni has a diversity of approaches according to the need of the moment, and that is very instructive for us. Rather than just parroting, we should really seek to empathize and understand the person that we want to share bhakti with, and then accordingly provide the teachings in a way that will be best suited to that person. That takes expertise, maturity, expertise, Krishna's mercy as well. Sometimes we'll find that when we are sincere, Krishna will guide us in the heart and will say exactly the right words for a particular person in a given moment. later on they'll tell us, that's exactly what I need. That was the question I had, and you answered it, or that was exactly what I needed to hear, and you just spoke perfectly to it. And you think, well, how did I do that? I didn't know to speak those words or um, to answer that particular or speak to that particular topic. But somehow, when that person is sincere, when we are sincere, then Krishna also makes the arrangement, and there's a channel for his mercy to flow. Viren is asking, Prabhu, how to be cordial with our workplace and outside work and still avoid bad association? Very, really good question. This can be a challenge for devotees. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives us the hints. He tells Rupa and Sanatan that, also Raghunath Das Goswami, he says, internally you cultivate devotion, externally you pretend to be like a materialist as needed. With Rupa and Sanatan, he gave the example that if somebody is having an affair, cheating on their spouse, then they will perform their home duties even more diligently. They will show their affections with even greater emphasis. And so he says, in the same way, the devotee of Krishna, cultivating their love and devotion for Krishna, externally, they may show themselves to be even more diligent in their dealings, in their workplace, or their relations with others in the world, so that people don't suspect or don't think badly of the devotees. Rather, they have a respect and appreciation for Vaishnavas. So there are some hints for us that we can be in the world, but not of it. We can be there and give association, not take association. That's what the preacher does. They go out into the world and they interact with so many others. The spirit of giving Krishna consciousness or sharing Krishna consciousness, benefiting others with Krishna's mercy. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the example of the Vaishnavas can give us some hints in relation to this important question that you have raised. Nikunja says, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Nikunja joining us from Auckland, New Zealand. Thank you for being here. Shamamati says, Hare Krishna Sri Prahlada Prabhu, all assembled devotees. So thank you so much for being here, Shamamandri, joining us from South Africa. Much appreciated. Gaurchandra joining us from New Zealand says, thank you, Prabhuji. And Janava Bhatta says, what a brilliant answer. So inspiring. Thank you. Thank you, Janava Bhatta, and thank you all for your association, for being here. We wish you well, healthy, may you be safe, may you deepen your attachment for chanting the holy name with attention and humility. May you deepen in your appreciation for hearing and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. May you deepen your appreciation for serving Sri Vigraha, the deity. May you deepen your appreciation of Sri Dham, the place of Krishna's pastimes, Mayapur, Vrindavan, but also the places where Krishna is served in his deity form. And may you deepen in your appreciation for devotees, taking every opportunity to serve Vaishnavas and cultivate firm friendship with Vaishnavas, and also extend your kindness to Vaishnavas that may need your support. With these practices, may your heart soften with compassion that moves you to share the treasures of bhakti with others. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.